Guys, Jesus cannot be the only way to God. Let's be honest. Like what's going to happen to the 3 to 4 billion people who do not believe in him? What's going to happen to the other religions who believe different things? Are we not all serving the same God? The reality is that is what a lot of people believe today. And even as Christians, we struggle to defend the truth because when we are asked to explain why we believe what we believe, we quote the Bible. And that is counterproductive because you are quoting the Bible to people who do not believe the Bible. And so that is what this video is going to be about, because I'm going to be proving to you why I believe Jesus is the only way to God without using any scriptures from the Bible. At least without quoting any scriptures that claim that Jesus is the only way to God. And I'm also going to be using this viral video from last year. And you need to definitely wait to the end of this video because that will absolutely blow your mind. But first, why is this important? This is a leadership channel. I believe this is extremely important because if we're going to take over the marketplace for the kingdom, we need to make the transition from believing to having conviction in what we believe. There are a lot of Christians today who believe the Bible, believe mentally that Jesus Christ is the only way to God because that is how we've been brought up. But they are not convinced in what they believe. They don't have an explanation. And there's a Bible verse that says, 1 Peter 3:15, says, always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have. How many Christians today can confidently say, this is why I believe that Jesus is the only way to God, without quoting the Bible? And a great example that I gave in one of the shorts that I did is Peter. Peter spent 3.5 years with Jesus. He saw Jesus do amazing miracles. He saw him heal the blind, raise the dead. Peter even walked on water. And yet when Jesus died, Peter went back to fishing. It was only when Jesus resurrected and appeared to him that Peter went from believing in him to having conviction in him. And so if we're going to take over the marketplace, if we're going to lead with conviction, because people only follow leaders who have conviction in where they are going. Moses needed an encounter with God before he would have the confidence to actually go and approach Pharaoh. God had to show him that I am real. And so I believe that by the end of this video, if you are a Christian, you will go from believing to having conviction in what you believe. And if you're not a Christian, I'm not trying to push anything on you, but what I want this video to do is at least create questions in your mind to really evaluate what you believe. Because by the time I'm done with this analysis, it will definitely cause you to question what you believe, right? And so there are two reasons why I believe Jesus Christ is the only way to God. And I'm going to do it, like I said, without quoting the Bible. Number one is that the concept of having multiple gods is not consistent with the nature of the Creator. Let me explain. So I was a pre-marriage coach for about 5 years, and I've had a lot of sessions with married people, with singles who are preparing to get married. And the stats out there say that, the number one reason for why people get divorced is finances, is money. I disagree with that premise. I believe communication about money is actually the number one reason for divorce. But let's even go deeper, because why is communication a problem? And I imagine myself in an interview where someone asked me this question, like, what is the biggest problem that you see with marriages today? And I told them it was very simple. It's one thing: definition of terms. There are a lot of people who are getting into marriages today, and I'm going to get to the point very soon. I'm giving you the backstory here. There are a lot of people who get into marriage who see the same words, say the same words, but those words paint very different pictures in their minds. They are seeing the same words, but they have different interpretations, and they have assigned different meanings to those words. And when you get into marriage, and for example, someone says money, and money to one person means security, money to another person means generosity, there is always going to be a clash of values and a clash of pictures. And that is where conflict comes in. That is where disagreement comes in. And so here's my point. Words create pictures in our hearts. And when those pictures don't align, it creates chaos, disorder, disagreement, division, and ultimately divorce. Now, let's check out the viral video before I get to my point.
Moving on, Brian, were we looking with the client slide deck? Because I would love to get that by EOD if possible.
Yeah, no, we should be all set for end of December. I just talked to the team and we should have it by New Year. Yeah.
No, I'm going to stop you right there. EOD means end of day. It is imperative that we get that by the end of day.
Yeah, they emailed me about that this morning.
I thought we said, so, okay, end of day, end of December. You see that that's confusing, right? I mean.
Oh, Brian, I explained this in the HR memo when, like, you tried to reschedule our morning meeting to start back up in January. Like, this 5 weeks, we're working. Like, this is not paid time off.
All right, well, that's news to me.
No, this is literally 3 slides.
So check this. 2 people, like I said, saw the same word, EOD. It meant different meanings, and different meanings created different expectations, which created disorder. Now, let's do a quick Google search. How many gods are there in the world? It says there are 18,000 gods, which means that there are potentially 18,000 different meanings, 18,000 different pictures, because every god has a different meaning for certain words. For example, salvation doesn't mean the same thing in all religions. One person says that you go to heaven. One person says you come back to earth reincarnated. Same word, different meanings, different pictures. 18,000 different pictures will produce chaos. It will produce disagreement. If 2 people cannot align on the definition of one word and the divorce rate is almost 50%, what do you think 18,000 gods will do? What do you think 18,000 different pictures for the same words will do? And so the point that I'm making here is that the idea of having multiple gods is not consistent with the nature of the creator. Because when we look at nature and the attributes of whoever created this universe and this world, we see characteristics that are opposite to what we are experiencing today. We see characteristics of order, of predictability, laws, principles, hierarchy, growth, organization. We are able to eat today because of the law of seed time and harvest. A farmer can go out confidently and know that the seed and the soil are speaking the same language. And so if I meet the conditions, I am guaranteed a harvest. Think about it. It is why when you move into a new house, you change the locks and you change the keys, because you want to be the only one who has the keys to open your door. Imagine if there were 18,000 keys that could open your door. How safe would you feel? And so my point here is the idea of multiple gods is not consistent with the nature of the creator. Whoever created this world has to be operating from one single source of truth. He has to be operating from one picture, one dictionary, where everything in the world understands that this is what this word means. I'm not quoting the Bible, because a lot of people say that, oh, anybody can believe what they believe. We all serve the same God anyway. That doesn't make sense when you think about it like this. Whoever created this world has one single source of truth, one definition, one picture, because that is the only way that things can be organized. Look at the end of day video, right? Imagine 18,000 different definitions of what EOD means. How many organizations will still be standing? I mean, that's why we have meetings at work. Meetings at work is simply to get on the same page. It's simply to have a unified vision. Because without a vision, my people perish. Without a vision, there's no discipline. Without a vision, people can't move. And so I hope you guys are seeing it. There can only be one source of truth. Now, if we filter through these 18,000 religions, and I'm not saying Christianity is the right one yet, by the way, right? But right now, we know that, okay, there can only be one source of truth, which means there can only be one God. Now, out of the 18,000 gods that are available, we need to now filter these 18,000 to see how many religions believe in one God versus multiple gods. And when we filter it down, we come to an interesting conclusion. There are only 3. Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. Only 3 religions believe in one God. And so now it takes us to the second thing that I believe is going to prove that Jesus Christ is the only way to God. And before we get into the second one, the Torah, the Quran, and the Bible, these are 3 documents that we have historic evidence to prove that they are actually real. However, number 2 point is the credibility of the message and the messengers. Now, the fact that a document has been preserved for centuries doesn't make it true. I can produce a fake document today, preserve it for 1,000 years. The fact that it has lasted 1,000 years doesn't automatically change it from a lie to truth. So the fact that they've been preserved for centuries doesn't make them true. How do we distinguish what is true and what isn't? The credibility of the messenger is just as important as the credibility of the message. And here's what I mean. We need to interrogate the lives of the people who pioneered this movement. And so I want you to check out this clip that I saw the other day, and it just perfectly summarizes what this point encapsulates. Check it out.
Okay, so we've got 2 very accurate books, the Quran and the Gospels. Now, obviously, they contradict each other, although there are similarities. A lot of similarities, but also contradictions. So now the bottom line question is, does the evidence point to the fact that you can trust Muhammad to speak the truth, or does the evidence point to Jesus Christ being trustworthy? Now, here's how I would go about that. Examine life, style. How did Jesus treat women? How did Muhammad treat women? How did Jesus treat his enemies? How did Muhammad treat his enemies? Those types of questions, lifestyle. Second question, ethical teaching. What are the ethical teachings of Muhammad? What are the ethical teachings of Christ? Are there internal contradictions, or is there an internal consistency? Third question, how did they die? Obviously, in the Gospels, Jesus dies an excruciatingly painful death, forgiving his enemies. Obviously, that demands my respect. Fourth question, what happens after they die? Obviously, in the Gospels, you have an historical resurrection of Christ, and you have eyewitnesses who see him risen from the dead. So study the 2, Muhammad in the Quran and Jesus in the Gospels, and ask yourself, what does the evidence point to? Who is more reliable, Muhammad or Christ?
The messenger is just as important as the message. But here's the question I want you to ask. If everyone lived by the messages that they taught, think about Moses, think about Muhammad, and think about Jesus. If everyone lived by what Moses did, the Bible says that the law killeth, but the Spirit gives life. Moses was all about the law. Do right, get right. Do bad, get bad. But guess what? Nobody was perfect, so we're always going to be doing bad, right? But the question I want you to ask is, if everyone lived by the messages that they taught, what type of world would we be living in today? Would it produce peace, which is consistent with the nature of the Creator, or would it produce chaos? Based on their messages, how were they telling us to treat our enemies? How were they telling us to treat ourselves, right? For me, I can only speak for myself. And like I said, I'm not trying to push Christianity on anybody. I'm just giving you the reason why I believe, and I'm convinced in what I believe. Is because when I look at the message of Jesus, he said, pray for your enemies. When he was on the cross, after being betrayed by the people that he came to save, his last breath, and you guys have to get this, because when you're about to die, you are managing your words, which is why, when people are about to die, and they call their families to bless them, because there's weight in what you say in those moments, because you don't have a lot of time. So it gives power to your words. When I was about to die, he said, Father, forgive them. Like, who does that? Who does that? Pray for your enemies. Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. He tells us the greatest commandment is to love God and to love your neighbor as yourself. If everybody lived like that, what outcome would it produce? Peace or chaos? Would the outcome be consistent with the nature of the Creator, or would it contradict the nature of the Creator? And so I believe Jesus is the only way to God, because his message was consistent with the nature of the Creator, and his lifestyle also shows us that if everyone were to live like he lived, our results will begin to reflect the nature of God. Our results will begin to reflect the nature of the Creator. We're all asking for world peace, world peace. World peace cannot happen with people serving multiple gods. It is an impossicant. That's a word I've just formed. It's not just impossible, it's an impossicant. It can't happen because different people have different pictures. You all have to unify the picture that you are seeing before there can ever be world peace. And again, I'm not here to impose my belief on you. I'm just trying to explain why I believe what I believe, because I believe that every leader shouldn't just believe. They should have conviction in what they believe. And if you're going to be a Christian who takes over for the kingdom of heaven, you can only stand and stay standing if your foundation is built on a rock as opposed to it being built on sand. Because when the persecution comes, and it is why a lot of people have fallen off, is why a lot of Christians are compromising in the workplace, because they just believe, they are not convinced. And so before we start talking about building skills, because we are going to talk about that on this channel, how do we, get better at communicating? How do we problem solve? How do we do all these things? You cannot build your skill set on the wrong foundation. If not, you will work for the enemy thinking that you're working for God. And so I want us to set that foundation before we dive into skill development and enhancing our value in the marketplace. And so what do you guys think? I would love to hear what you think in the comment section. Why do you believe what you believe? Let's have a conversation. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share. There are a lot of Christians who need to hear this. Share it on your social media platforms, man. We need more people to come in here. Thanks again for watching, and see you on the next one. Bye.